came to America first when I was 15 as an exchange student. I won an incredible scholarship sponsored by American government that allowed students from former Soviet Union to come to US and study for a year as cultural ambassadors. And later I learned over 100,000 students competed for that scholarship. If I had known the amount of competition, I probably would not have entered, but I guess it goes to show you that you should go for it no matter what. But so I came here when I was 15 and fell in love with the American optimism, you know, the sense of American dream.
Was there a culture shock? Was there a big difference? When you got here to America, were you surprised? Is it what you expected? What was your first experience like?
I was surprised on many levels. First of all, I'm from Moscow, which is a big city. It's like New York. And they sent me to Springfield, Illinois. Nick is from there. That's the one who for that. And so it was a culture shock just on a small town level because I had never lived in a small town.
But anybody from LA would have been shocked as well.
It's very different, but people were really kind to me. And for most people I met, I was the first and only Russian they had ever seen. So I was really, you know, that was kind of the point of that whole scholarship, to bring a Russian student into small town USA and basically show them show them somebody different from a whole different side of the planet. But also in Russia we studied British English, and everybody didn't speak with a British accent in Springfield, Illinois. So that was a bit of a shock. Well, I expected that, but I couldn't understand anything they were saying, especially teenagers. They talk so fast. Anyway, so it was shocking.
So coming out here, were you coming? Was it a music scholarship, or how did music come into play? What's your background in music?
That particular scholarship was academic, but I was writing songs and singing since I was a baby. My mom says that I was singing before I was speaking. I mean, I don't remember that myself, but that's what my mom says. But for as long as I can remember, I've always had music in my head. And I've always written songs. And the thing is that in Russia, when I was growing up, it was the fall of the Soviet Union, and things were very difficult, and people really didn't dare or didn't have time to really have big dreams. People, you know, we really had just enough food to survive. We never starved, but things were really hard. So I never even thought or dared to dream that I could do music as a career. That never even occurred to me.
So when you came out here, was that something, did that dream happen in America, or was it something, since, like you said, that you dabbled in at home, but it seemed more obtainable when you came here to America?
I've written so many songs when I was a kid and as a teenager, but when I came here, I saw how many artists there are. I mean, some of those artists have graced this Clive Davis stage. They have come from nothing. They had no connections, and a lot of them were very poor as I was growing up. So I saw that if you really have some sort of talent and a lot of drive and some luck, you can really make it. And that, but also when I met Nick Baker, I was a freshman at the university, and he was the first person I really played my songs to, and he really said, "You gotta do this." So he really encouraged me. Without him, I don't know if I would be sitting here and say, it pops in my head. Still don't know where it comes from. But usually it pops in my head and it kind of stays there, and kind of, you know how like the cotton candy machine, like with each layer, like gets fatter and fatter. That's how like the melody. I'm not sure if the cotton candy analogy is now I want candy, but you know what I mean. Like with every time like it spins, it gets thicker and thicker, and kind of like the melody does its own thing in my head. And sometimes it won't let me be. Sometimes I can't sleep. Like I can have a whole night and I cannot sleep because the melody won't leave me. It is sometimes infuriating, but it's magical and awesome and annoying all at the same time. So anyway, so it starts there, and then I usually envision the chords that go with the melody, and sometimes the words. And I usually then go to the piano, and then I go to Nick, and I said, "Hey, what do you think of this little bit?" I said, "Oh, that's boring," and then we don't. He doesn't, but you know, we've been together, we're married now. We have this trust, and he's the one person in the world I know he's not going to BS me. So, but most of the time he likes what I come up with. And then he's a great poet, a lyricist, and we usually end up writing lyrics together.
I have to say,
except for in Russian, he doesn't.
Except, oh my God. You have to pull the Rosetta Stone out and kind of, catch on. But you talked about the piano as well too. When did you start playing the piano? How long have you been involved with that?
My grandmother had a piano in her apartment building in Moscow. It's like Manhattan. Everybody lives in apartments in Moscow. And she had an upright piano. And when I was about 4, she started teaching me a little bit. And she knew very little bit, and what she knew, she taught me. And it was pretty amazing. Actually, when right around that time, we wrote our first song together. My first co-writer was my grandmother, and she had never written a song herself. It just kind of happened. It was just, still looking back now, just incredible that it happened. But anyway, so and my mom and my grandma both noticed that I had inclination towards music, even though nobody in the family was really truly musical. My grandma could play a little bit, but she was tone deaf, and she never really pursued that. But so they sent me to School of Music for 8 years, classical training. I now know how to conduct a choir and notate everything, and but they drill you on those things in Russia. It's pretty tough.
I did notice during her sound check, the warm-ups that she was doing, I was like, oh, she must be classically trained. There were a lot of oohs and ahs that are not necessarily pop-driven, which was cool though, because you do the pop music, but you have this classical background. Could you talk about how that affects your music in a good way? Is there advantages that you have from having a classical background with the type of music that you do?
I think it definitely gave me, the technique to play the piano, and I love listening to classical music. I don't play it anymore because you have to really, really, really practice the same thing over and over, and sometimes it just, for me, it kills the soul a little bit if you do that much. It's for me personally, but I love listening to classical. So that gave me the technique, but at the same time, when I was about 11, my mom thought I should play one of my songs for my piano teacher, who was a classical pianist. And I played my songs, and then she took my mom aside and whispered to her, and that was it. And then later at home, Mom, what did she say? She couldn't make sense of what I was doing because she was so much in her classical world, Soviet classical world, when people did not even think that somebody could write their own song in a non-classical style and sing on top of it. Yeah. So it's funny, so she kind of almost discouraged me from doing that, which really broke my heart when I was done. So maybe that was a little bit of a downside, but again, that teacher came to my concert in Moscow a few years ago, and she loved it, and she told me how proud she was of me. I wonder, she probably doesn't remember that incident, I didn't want to bring it up, but how it is.
I always seen that you had something special.
And that's you were great from the beginning, but it's amazing. I guess it goes to show you that I don't know, you have to be really careful what you say to people, especially kids, because we take it all too hard,
So spending 15 years of your life in Moscow before you come to America, I'm sure there was a lot of influences out there that shaped your music to what you are now. Can you talk about some of the influences from Moscow, and then we could talk about some of your American influences as well?
I grew up as a huge fan of Russian folk music, which is absolutely beautiful, and mostly, people outside of Russia don't really know what that is. But there's one classical composer called Tchaikovsky, known for Nutcracker mainly in the West, but it's Swan Lake as well. Who has their phone on?
I was your teacher calling me.
Yeah, I know. She's probably like, you made a mistake on the piano. She used to smack my hands too. That's what the Russian teachers do. Smack students' hands. Where were we?
You talk about your influences.
That's right, yeah. Tchaikovsky, he's the Russian classical composer that really took all of this beautiful Russian folk music and brought it into the whole classical world, and I'm a huge fan of his. So I love that. That's what gave me, I think, my soul is that beautiful Russian traditional music. That I might do one of those songs later for you guys.
And then we were talking about when you came over here to America, the type of music that influenced you over here.
Here, when I came, I listened to a lot of top 40, but also I heard artists like Jewel and Tori Amos. I never heard that genre of music before. I didn't know. You could usually like in Russia there was a lot of pop stars just prancing around and just lip syncing. I didn't know that. And then there are artists that like a Bob Dylan type who like mainly poets who just kind of who are not like singers, but there's nothing in between. In Russia now there's that singer-songwriter genre is starting to appear. So when I came here and I discovered artists like Tori Amos and Jewel who do exactly what I've been doing my whole life, but in America, and I just love that, and it really inspired me.
I wanna scream at people who are mean to me, but I'm too nice, too nice. I'm a nice girl, I'm the quiet type. Never argue, never fight, always agree. Afraid of controversy, afraid to hurt the feelings of people who don't care about me.